Always with the fire beats. Shout out to my guy, Johnny Juice 7, of course, always crushing it as well. Welcome to the Recher podcast. Recher here with you. Happy Monday, everybody. Appreciate you spending your Monday afternoon with me today on the program. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Recher, even that new one, Blue Sky Social, whatever. I don't know how long that's going to last, but if there's a social media platform out there, I'm hopping on. I'm getting at Recher, and that's exactly what I did with that. Like and subscribe. Head on over to my YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/@JayrEcher10. That's JayRecher10. Appreciate everybody for tuning in and showing a ton of love. Big shout out to Barrett Media, who wrote a nice article about me here recently about my plans for not just the short-term future, but the long-term future. That's up barrettmedia.com. If you've never checked out that site, you should. There's a lot of great things when it comes to TV and radio, when it comes to sports, and now with news as well. Jason Barrett and the entire crew over there has done such an incredible job. The summit that we usually go to every year, it's the Barrett Sports Media Summit. And, man, it's just incredible. You want to know what's going on in the world of not just sports now, but news, head on over to barrettmedia.com. What a show we have for you today. This has been one of the more popular names that we've heard over in the last week or so, and it is Pinellas County Commissioner Chris Latvala. He's going to join us on the show at 12:20 today. He has been pretty much against this whole deal when it comes to the Rays Stadium in Pinellas County. But I want to hear his side of the story. I've seen people attacking him. I know he's gotten death threats, unfortunately for him and his family. Like, that's just way too far. You may not agree with what he has to say regarding the Rays and their future in Pinellas County and St. Pete. I know he did speak to St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch today, so we're going to ask him about that. But I want to hear the entire story, right? We hear it from the Rays. We hear it from the media. We hear from the Tampa Bay Times. We hear from our local media members. But I want to hear from this guy right here and hear what he has to say, because a lot of people are just, they got their pitchforks out when it comes to Chris Latvala. I want to hear it directly from him, and we're going to have a nice chat with him at 12:20. At 1 o'clock today, Zac Blobner, my former partner in crime, is going to join us here. He's going to talk about the Florida Gators. What a win for them over LSU over the weekend. There were people out there, myself included, that were wondering if the Gators were going to win another game all season about 6 weeks ago. Now they might even be bowl eligible. Can you believe that? It is nuts. DJ Lagway is the truth. At 1:20 today, Jake Asman is going to join us on the program. And you want to see a guy that's doing it right. Jake Asman, you got to go check him out on all social media platforms. And his YouTube channel is ridiculous. The Jets, that's his forte. That's his baby. He is all over it. What the hell has happened with the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers? He was also at UFC 309 at Madison Square Garden on Saturday night. So let's hear what he has to say about President Trump being there, Elon Musk being there, John Jones defending his heavyweight championship. Can't wait for that conversation with Jake at 1:20. And then at 1:40 today, just a couple of days after the best rushing performance in USF history, one of their running backs is going to join us on the show. Terron Keith joins us at 1:40. That dude is for real. So with him and Kelly Joyner and Naquan Wright, a three-headed monster, 6 rushing touchdowns for USF on Saturday in their win over Charlotte. One more win for the Bulls, and they'll be bowl eligible. They take on Tulsa this week, so they can wrap it up at Raymond James Stadium on Saturday. As always, I want to hear from you. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom of the screen, wherever you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe over on my YouTube page. Shout out to my guy, Bart Hill, and Big Dummy Dan. Always appreciate you guys for tuning in. Happy birthday messages go out to a couple of people today. First off, the one and only Mama Margie. If you've ever been to the Village Inn on Dale Mabry, Margie Lepla has been there for decades. You have to go check her out. Ask for Mama Margie. She is the best. Margie Lepla, the one and only. Today is her birthday. I know some local TV stations have just done some news stories on her because she's been there forever. She served politicians and like world leaders and big time athletes. She's been there forever, and we love her. So shout out to you, Mama Margie. Happy birthday, as well as head coach Todd Bowles from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he's not the only coach in the Tampa Bay area celebrating a birthday. Coach Jose Fernandez, 25 years at the helm of USF women's basketball. They're about to head down to the Cayman Islands. I know there's a media availability tomorrow. I'm going to try to make my way out there at around 3 o'clock. If you didn't get a chance to see the video package for Coach Jose Fernandez for 25 years with USF women's basketball, I implore you to go check it out on social media. Everybody from Dawn Staley to Gino Oriema to Courtney Williams, who just did an incredible job in the WNBA finals, former players, former coaches, please, please, please go check it out. It is one of the best things that you're going to see all day long. Let me give you some updates from practice today, because I know that's why you're tuning in for a lot of local stuff here in the Tampa Bay area. We're going to start with the Tampa Bay Lightning, okay? So for the Bolts, and a big win for them on Saturday night against the New Jersey Devils. Thursday, let's take a step back. Thursday night, big win against the Winnipeg Jets. 15-1 Winnipeg was going into that game. And then not only do they win that game, but Andrei Vasilevsky picks up win number 300. And just to see the outpouring of love and emotion for the Big Cat, it was so great to be in the building for that. And then we find out that on Saturday, before the game against the Devils, more love for the Big Cat. And the pre-game ceremonies, and it is all up on my social media at Recher. I recorded the entire pre-game ceremony. I'm talking about the gifts that he got from Ryan McDonough and Victor Hedman and Nikita Kucherov and Jeffrey Vinnick and Thunderbug, as well as some of the incredible video messages that he got from his dad and his brother. He was so shocked about that message from his brother. You could tell it meant so much to him. But you're talking about Sergachev and Bishop and Killorn and Stammer and Carter Stamkos. Like, it was really, really cool and so well done. Nobody does that better than the Tampa Bay Lightning. They always know just the perfect way to honor people. We've seen it so many times, and we just saw it a couple of weeks ago with Steven Stamkos coming back. But those video packages, the montages that they put together, world class. They set the bar. It is amazing. And then in classic Andrei Vasilevsky performance, he goes out there and he shuts out the New Jersey Devils 4-0. So a really solid all-around performance from the Bolts, but it's just so Vassy that for win number 301, he gets honored before the game, and then he pitches his 36th shutout in his career and also second of the season. Certain guys, when they get honored and when there's a big ceremony before the game, sometimes it's difficult for them to kind of quelch some of those emotions. They get so jacked up and they just don't have a great performance. And then look at what Andrei Vasilevsky does. It's just stellar. And it's just proving once again why he's one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie in the world. And he's going to be a surefire Hall of Famer one day. But big news from Lightning practice today at Amalie Arena. Braden Point, who has been skating with the team over the last couple of weeks, back in there and taking line rushes. Big difference than what we've seen the last couple of, I'd say the last 2 weeks or so, with Point not being in there. He practiced with the team, but not take line rushes. So you'd see, a couple of guys together and Point would be off to the side when they started to do that. Not today. He's out there. He's centering a line with Jake Gensel and Nikita Kucherov. All signs point that he'll be back in there tomorrow night in Pittsburgh against the Penguins. I know John Cooper doesn't want to be too committal because you don't want to put the cart before the horse. I get that. But there's steps to this, right? There's levels to this. And one of the things that you want to see as you inch and get closer to Braden Point being back in there for the Bolts is him taking line rushes on a practice day like today. And that's exactly what we saw. So it's exciting to know that the Lightning are really playing well over these last couple of games. Defensively, they're playing smart in front of Andrei Vasilevsky, and a guy like Braden Point has an opportunity to get back in the game. And his speed, he's a game breaker. He's fantastic. Let's go Bolts here. What do you think of Lilleberg? I think he's earning a possible top 4 D-man status. I don't disagree with you, but it's kind of hard to think that he's going to be a top 4 D-man on this team because you have J.J. Moser, who I think has done fantastic for the Bolts since he's been acquired in that trade with Utah for Mikhail Sergachev. He's done such a great job playing with Victor Hedman, and it's not so easy to do that. We've seen guys struggle in the past, and we've seen other guys really excel, like a Jan Ruda, right? Even Jake Dotchin a couple of years ago did really well. But there was something that stood out to me the other night. Now, I watched in the press box, and I know it probably didn't show up on TV. There was a line change, and then Victor Hedman was going out there, and J.J. Moser, and they were kind of skating side by side, and J.J. went right to the right, and he almost He motioned to Victor, go to the left. I got this. We're good. You don't see that. You don't necessarily see that with guys playing with Victor Hedman, but that's what JJ Moser brings to the table. Intelligence. He's quick. He makes great decisions. I'm a huge fan. I think this was one of the more underrated moves from any team in the National Hockey League in the 2024 offseason. But that's why I think Lilleberg, and it's not anything against him, he's not going to play a top 4 role, because on the left side you have Hedman, and then we know the McDonough-Chernak pairing. I think that's one of your best shutdown pairs in the league. So you have Lilleberg. It looks like Perbix. I know they've gone 11-7 the last couple of weeks. But we'll see, because I know Radish chipped in with the goal against New Jersey, but I've also seen some shortcomings defensively, some issues where, you look at it, I think it was Ehlers, or maybe it was Kyle Connor. It was one left-handed winger in the Winnipeg game Thursday night where they just toe dragged and went right around Darren Radish, and I was like, it didn't look too good. So we'll see. We'll see if they continue to go 11-7. I know Cam Atkinson was taking line rushes today. Some people are wondering, like, why, and Dan's one of those guys, who did they send back down? Gonsalves, they did. I think at this time, at this point of the year, you got to kind of exhaust everything when it comes to Cam Atkinson. You brought him in here, a veteran winger. He's been around the league. I get it, right? But it's just not working out, right? It's not working out. And it's tough to look at the Cam Atkinson situation and wonder if it's not Connor Sheary 2.0, right? I mean, it's rough. It's rough. But if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning, you just can't throw it away this early in the season. You're going to give it a couple of more weeks, and then you're going to go from there. I've been really impressed with Gage Gonsalves. The Nick Paul goal, it was all Gage Gonsalves on Saturday night. He was running around the offensive zone, hitting people. He was fast, and then he set the screen for Nick Paul's goal. And you're not going to get a point for that, but the coaches definitely see that. And we all saw it up in the press box and said, that dude is flying. So you send him back down because you don't have to worry about it. And you're like, all right, you can bring him back up at some point. But I'm pretty sure that Gage Gonsalves has made a really good impact on the Bolts. And they're just looking at Cam Atkinson like, you got to step it up. If he doesn't step it up, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to have to move on. You can't keep Gage Gonsalves out of the lineup. He has been that good. Also, when it comes to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I was talking to Nick Paul after the game the other night. If you notice, he's gone to the straight stash. I told him, I said, Nick, you're going to have to keep the stash. He goes, I know, man. It's worked out good for me. A couple of goals. He has been flying on that ice as well. So some really good signs. The Lightning picking it up at the right time. I know people were looking into these next 4 games before Thursday wondering, like, this might not go too well over the next week and a half, especially coming off that losing streak. But, man, that Thursday night performance against the Winnipeg Jets have really kind of snapped this team into gear. So it's exciting to see how they're going to respond tomorrow night in Pittsburgh against the Penguins, who are really struggling themselves. Good news, not only coming out of Lightning practice today, but also Buccaneer practice. And you have to be careful who you're getting your information from. Again, trust our local guys. I'm looking at guys like Greg Allman. I'm looking at Rick Stroud. I'm looking at my friends at Pewter Report. I mean, and there's plenty others as well. I'm looking at those, some of those guys, but some good news when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Evans was out there walking around today. Jamel Dean was designated to return from injured reserve. You don't have to worry about that with Mike Evans. The plan was always for him to come back after the bye week against the New York Football Giants on Sunday. They didn't have to put him on IR. Or they didn't choose to put him on IR. They did with Jamel Dean, but it looks like both of those guys could be back in action on Sunday. Tristan Wirfs was walking around today with a brace on his knee. We know he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, but to think that you're going to get 2 of your big pieces back on the outside, Mike Evans on offense and Jamel Dean on defense, that's got to make you feel good as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. Mike Edwards, great to see him back in a Bucs practice uniform today, wearing number 21. We'll see what kind of impact he has being claimed off of waivers, getting the band back together, right? So many of those guys from that Super Bowl winning team just 4 years ago, 2 of them coming back here in the last year with Jordan Whitehead in the offseason and Mike Edwards just last week. But now's the time. It really helped out yesterday that the Denver Broncos beat the Atlanta Falcons. They didn't just beat them. They absolutely destroyed the Atlanta Falcons. That helped out the Bucs in a big way. They need as many options as possible to make the postseason. It's going to be tough to win the division because you lost both games to the Atlanta Falcons. They hold the tiebreaker, yes. right? But there's still a chance. You never know if they could, they could possibly go into a tailspin. Is it going to be tough to win a wild card? Yeah, but your schedule's right in front of you. All this talk about the schedule being weak at the end of the year, all right, now's the time. It's either put up or shut up if you're the Bucs. You got to this point, you're getting healthier, and the game starts on your rest of the season starts on Sunday against a dreadful New York Giants football team that has just benched their starting quarterback, Daniel Jones. They're not going to Drew Lock. They are going to Tommy DeVito. Tommy Cutlets is the guy that'll be under center at MetLife on Sunday. And he had some good games last year. Listen, he beat the Green Bay Packers on December 11th. And it wasn't just his arm, it was his legs. That was after a couple of games being there with the Giants, starting after injuries to Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor last year. That's the thing that will worry me about the New York Giants this week. They do a good job of rushing the passer. Okay, that's one of those rare strengths that they do have. So you have to worry with Tristan Wirfs not being in there. Is that offensive line going to be able to hold up? And also, I'm looking at some of the weapons with Tommy DeVito out there. You have Malik Neighbors on one side, Wan'Dale Robinson. I know they've had trouble putting it together, but we've seen this from other teams in the past. You get a little bit of a boost when you change your quarterback, you change your coach. When you make a big change like that, there's some kind of, I don't know what it is, but it's a galvanizing force that sometimes, and it may not be long-term. It may just be 1 week, but that's something that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have to be wary of going into the game. They have to understand Tommy DeVito is going to come out there. He doesn't turn the ball over a ton. I mean, he threw 8 touchdowns last year to only 3 interceptions. He runs like a running back. I mean, it's just, he's the guy that's going to go out there and he's got nothing. What has he got to lose? Right? They went with him instead of Drew Lock. I know the Giants look like they're probably looking ahead, but the Buccaneers have to be smart this weekend against Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants, because you don't want to take anybody lightly in the National Football League. We know on any given Sunday, and we've seen it all year, and you've seen it for as long as you've been a football fan. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the records are. It doesn't matter what the history is like. All you got to do is be better than that team on one day. And if that happens, it can just shake up the entire season for you, upset the apple cart. So the Buccaneers, again, your entire future is right in front of you. And if you want to make an impact and you want to try to make a run towards the postseason and try to make another deep playoff run, it starts on Sunday against the New York Football Giants. All right. Let's bring in our next guest here in a couple. We'll bring him in a minute or so as he gets prepared over there. A lot of the big conversation here locally about the future of the Tampa Bay Rays in their stadium. We heard the announcement that they're going to play the 2025 season in Tampa at Steinbrenner Field, but there's just a lot of opinions on this situation. And we thought after a couple months ago that, all right, the questions are done. We're waiting for the first quarter of 2025 where the shovels are in the ground, and then we can kind of start to progress forward. But unfortunately, the hurricanes and what happened at Tropicana Field has kind of changed all that. And listen, it's a time for conversation. It's a time to kind of realize what is going on and what are the decision makers thinking. And I want to bring in Chris Latvala now, one of the Pinellas County commissioners. And Chris, I appreciate you taking some time to join me today. How are you on this Monday?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, man, it's been a crazy couple of weeks here after the storm. I hope you and yours are well. And I know you had a conversation with Ken Welch today, St. Pete City Mayor. I mean, just first, let's start there. How did the conversation go with Ken? We know how important it is to him. I mean, this has been such a big hallmark for him and his tenure there of trying to keep the Tampa Bay Rays here. How did that discussion go?
Yeah, I thought it went well. He and I don't always agree politically, but, he's somebody who I trust, and I've never had to doubt something that he said or says. And, I believe that he's committed to keeping the Rays in Pinellas County. I'm committed to keeping the Rays in Pinellas County. And we had a very good discussion.
Chris, yeah, that's, I think the big thing here is we're looking at what the storms are doing, what the storms have done and what happened to Tropicana Field. And let's just, you seeing what happened to the Trop, what was your initial reaction when you saw that? Because I remember I was in Miami, I was doing coverage, and just to see that, it was surreal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was heartbreaking. And, I go back to July when we first voted on this deal. And on the county commission, the vote was 5-2, and I was one of the 2 no votes. And it has nothing to do with the raise. It had more so to do with just the facts of the deal and the breakdown and the monetary part of it. I'm a huge Rays fan, and I could talk the Rays, all day long, going back to the, Quentin McCrack and Esteban Yan days. And so, Aubrey Huff, then go to 2008. So it has nothing to do with baseball. It has to do with the finances. And so, that's why I opposed the deal originally. And then, the drop happens and okay, well, where are they going to play? And my number one concern representing Pinellas County on the commission is, okay, they need to stay in Pinellas County. And because the taxes that Pinellas County government is using is our tourist bed tax dollars. And that's a tax that we collect when tourists stay in our hotels and stay in our Airbnbs. And so by them playing in Hillsborough County, it does nothing for our bed taxes. And so we'll be using funds that are not being replenished, by the Rays playing in Hillsborough County. And and with the Rays not saying anything publicly or privately about where they're playing, that's where the frustration builds. And not only did they not say anything to me, they didn't say anything to my colleagues either.
Let's go back to the beginning, Chris. I know you were one of the 2 no votes. What about the finances specifically kind of gave you a red flag? Because you said you're a Rays fan, but what about the deal financially? Because I think that's, and it may be too much inside baseball for lack of a better term, but, people kind of want to understand too, because you say you're a Rays fan, but, you also have a duty to represent the people that, brought you in here. So what about that initial deal before the Storms gave you pause?
So there were 2 things that I brought up going back to July as the reason why I voted no. And that was the beaches. Currently we're in a battle with the Army Corps of Engineers over re-nourishing our beaches. And that's something that I believe and my colleagues believe is a federal government responsibility. The Army Corps of Engineers has renourished our beaches going back decades. They have decided the last few years that they're not going to do that unless the residents sign easements over, which is a private property issue. And I don't really, I don't think sports fans want to get in the weeds about that. But basically, if the federal government doesn't fund it, then we have to fund it ourselves because we have to have sand on the beaches, both for tourism, but also it's a protection for property owners, but also for roads and it protects people from water. And so that was number one. Number 2, I didn't like, even though it wasn't something that the county approved, it was something that it wasn't something we negotiated. It was something that we had a vote on. And that was the land development deal around the Trop. I thought that was a bad deal for the people of St. Petersburg and really the people of Pinellas County. I thought that the Rays made out like bandits. Part of that deal was the Rays could sell the team and keep that land development around the Trop. And it was at a reduced value that they could then buy up to 20 years from now at that current, reduced value. And so they could buy a plot of land and then sell it to a developer the next day and make bukus of money. And I just thought that that was a bad deal, for the residents. And so those were the 2. And so I wanted to spend the tourism tax dollars on the beaches if we had to. And prioritize the beaches first. And then also I spoke against the land part. Fast forward after the hurricane and all of Pinellas County, the beaches got absolutely devastated.
Right.
And sand washed away. Some of the flooding that occurred was as a result of the sand not being replenished. And So we're still in a fight with FEMA. We're still in a fight with the Army Corps about what we're going to be doing with the beaches. And when we delayed a few weeks ago the bond vote, that's something that we talked about was, what are we going to do with the beaches? The hurricanes throwing a wrench into things and whatnot.
And I know that there's another vote tomorrow, Chris, and it seems like there's a lot of public opinion that there's going to be another delay. Would you anticipate another delay when that vote comes tomorrow?
Well, the way that I look at it, Jay, is even though I was against the deal in July, I want baseball to stay in Pinellas County. And if I had to vote yay or nay, I would be a no. I think the way that you keep it alive is by delaying it and trying to work with the Rays and like I did today, work with our city partners. And
so what would you have to see? What would you have to see, Chris? I'm sorry to cut you off. So what would it take for you to go from the nay to the yay then? Like if you said, all right, if you give me A, B, and C, then that would get me to sway the other way.
Yeah. So I would want and I'm a little hesitant to just negotiate, on your air.
No, I'm with you. You don't want to lose your leverage. I get that.
Right. But then I have doubts on whether or not the trop can be fixed. If it's fixed, that's a different story. And whether or not they play the next 3 years in the trop or the next 4 years in the trop, that's a different story. I think first they need to be playing at a minimum 1 year or at a maximum 1 year in Hillsborough County. And then they need to come back to Pinellas ASAP. So we can start recouping those tourist bed tax dollars, whether that's in at the trop or that's in, Dunedin, Clearwater, whatever. Because them playing in Hillsborough doesn't do anything for our bed taxes. And then I think, if it gets delayed to the point that, it makes the current deal moot, as was suggested by the owner, Mr. Sternberg, then we, renegotiate a deal and, go from there. For 10 plus years, he's threatened to move the Rays. This is not the first time. But I have questions of, okay, well, where are you moving them to? Because name me another city that has $600 million of public funds available. And I think you would be hard pressed to find one. Tampa sure as heck does not, because if they had the public funds available, they would be there. They're not at the trop because of the location, because you've been around long enough to know that for years they bashed the trop location, and I agreed with them on that. I think the trop location was bad because fish don't go to baseball games.
Okay. And what do you, I mean, I know there are other parks out there that are brushed up against the water. I think of Pittsburgh and places like San Francisco. And I think there's,
but they have the population base.
I understand that. But I mean, I do think if it was a little different, maybe there was a better surrounding atmosphere of where families could go down there for a whole weekend and maybe go to a hotel, go to a show, do some other things. I think that would make a lot of sense. So I think initially when people were hearing about the deal and the everything that was going on with, making the gas plant district over and bringing so much more, entities there where it becomes like a happening place, right? I think that's what people are looking at. Chris, I want to ask you about, playing 1 year in Hillsborough County. Do you look at, and I'm just kind of passing along things that I've heard because I've had a lot of conversation. Do you look at this type of thing as, all right, are you worried about kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face thing where it's like, if I really, am I fighting this battle for 1 year to go to Hillsborough County and possibly losing 30 years of an incredible ballpark with all the money that are going down there? Can you kind of balance that out? Because I know that's one of the things that people are really trying to rationalize in their head where, from the Pinellas side, we get it, right? That tax money, that the bed tax, that's not going to you. But if you can sacrifice that for a year for 30 years, a new ballpark, and just that growth in the county area. Doesn't it seem like it's a worthy sacrifice?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And one of the things that I would say is that I'm one of 7 people. And, while I'm a skeptic of the deal and whether or not it could work, there's 6 other people that the Rays can get to 4 on. They only need to get to 4 votes. And if they can't convince 4 people that this is a good idea, that's on them. And, I think that if this was put forward to a referendum to the voters, it would be rejected. Right after Kansas City won the Super Bowl, their voters were able to vote on stadium upgrades that would result in a tax increase, and they voted against it.
So you think if they put this to a vote to people where in Pinellas County, that they would vote yes to a state? What would they vote yes or no to?
No, I think the voters would reject it.
Really?
I think the voters would overwhelmingly reject it.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Because it seems like there's a lot of people that are, and I see it, man. Like people are coming after you on social media, and I spoke about. I think it's way too over the top. I may not agree with everything that your perspective, but I think that's part of being an American is having differing opinions on things like that. But it seems like the overwhelming majority from the people that I see would possibly vote yes for something like that. What makes you say no?
If you ask the question, or do you support a new Rays stadium, people would say yes.
Right.
Okay. Do you support spending $1 billion of city and county taxes for a new Rays stadium? I think the question is completely different, and that's what it would cost. So the county's committing $300 million,
right?
Just from the county side, but we have to bond it. So when we bond it and finance it, it's going to be $615 million over 30 years. That's completely different than $300 million. And so it's all how people view it. Up until this weekend, going back in July, my constituents in Clearwater and Largo, which is where I represent a district that's Clearwater, Largo, and part of the Beaches, was overwhelmingly against it from the people that I heard from in my district in that area.
Where were their things, Chris? Like the top of them. I know what yours are, but what was their top reason? Like, this is why I'm saying no.
The beaches.
Beaches.
That was number one. And this weekend, it was pretty split. Like maybe split 50-50. If you talk to people in St. Petersburg, it's completely, I think there's, more people in St. Petersburg support it. Not to be an ass, but my district is not in St. Petersburg. It's Clearwater, Largo, and part of the Beaches. We have commissioners that represent the whole county, that have a differing view as I do. Our two newest commissioners represent the whole county. We'll see how they vote on it. So the 2 no votes, just to give you some perspective, the 2 no votes on July was myself, which is, Clearwater, Largo area, and then the guy who represents Palm Harbor, Dunedin, Safety Harbor, and Oldsmar. So it's kind of split geographically. And then you had the countywide people that supported it, and then you had the South County people that supported it.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let me ask you this. Is there any possible way to do both? I mean, how much money, because you talk about how much money, the 300 and then the bottom of the 600. Is there any way to be able to take care of the beaches and get the stadium deal done? Because that's the rational, logical next question from a lot of people are like, all right, we understand that. We don't want to make light of that because we all understand that tourism dollar coming in from people coming to our beaches from all over the world, and also us here locally enjoying that. But is there any possible way to get both of those things done?
Yeah, I mean, possibly, and that was part of the reason why we delayed the vote a couple weeks ago. And when we delayed the vote, it was 6-1. You had people that voted for the deal that said, oh, hang on, let's put the brakes on so we can examine the impacts to our beaches, so we can examine, what the hurricane has meant to the county. I have no idea how those people are going to vote tomorrow. Our chair, Kathleen Peters, was on the record this week speaking to one of the local TV stations that was talking about the need to, see how much damage was done to the beaches and see, well, what can the feds pay and so forth.
Right.
If we have a beautiful baseball stadium, a beautiful gas plant district in downtown St. Pete, but we don't have any beaches, so to speak, of, people are not going to come to Pinellas County. I don't know how long you've lived here, but in 2010, during the BP oil spill in the Gulf,
I remember that.
there was not a ounce of oil that touched Pinellas beaches. But because the news had focused on this big oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, it severely hurt our tourism because people in Europe and people around the country thought that we had oil all over our beaches.
Yeah, I remember that spill vividly, man, and it was crazy. It took on a life of its own in the media. I understand what you're saying about the beaches. I want to talk about the relationship with the Tampa Bay Rays because you mentioned the comments made by Stu Sternberg and kind of the radio silence, and that's some of the things that I've been kind of interested to hear about. Is there a sentiment with you and some of the other commissioners that you were kind of left out of the communication when it came to the Rays' decision to move to Hillsborough County for the 2025 season?
I mean, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but certainly on my end, if they would have called me and said, hey, here's the reasons why Dunedin doesn't work. Here and there's, I don't think they ever spoke to anybody with the Blue Jays. I know that they spoke to the folks in Clearwater one time and it was a one-way conversation. But if they would have said, hey, we'd like to stay in Clearwater, here's why the Clearwater Stadium doesn't work. I've never had a tour. I go to games there, but I've never had a back, I've never toured the clubhouse or the back area of that facility to understand, okay, this is, what's needed for major league regular season game. Right. This is what Steinbrenner has. This is what Clearwater doesn't have. If they would have explained that, maybe it was a different conversation. We had the meeting on Thursday when not only myself, but my colleague said, we haven't heard from the Rays. We'd like to hear from the Rays. An hour later, they send out a press release in conjunction with the Yankees saying, oh, by the way, we're playing in New York. We're playing in Tampa. Steinbrenner.
Tampa, yep.
That's not a way that you treat your partners that are about to sign over $300 million of public funds. I mean, that's not how you treat a partnership. And, partnerships are two-way streets, and it's not an arrogance thing. It's I have a responsibility to look out for my my taxpayers and my residents and my voters. And, I'm not just going to say, okay, I'm going to vote for this now because, the Trop's messed up and you're going over to Tampa.
Is the
because
way that
Stu has made similar threats in the past.
I was going to say that. It does the decision and how that decision was made. Does that kind of feed into your hesitancy when you originally voted no on the deal? Because you mentioned that, the numbers in this deal and how they could just sell the team and still own that land. Does that kind of does that add on to that mound of kind of, not want to say discontent, but just kind of concern that you have doing this deal with the Tampa Bay Rays? I guess I don't mean it to be so black and white, but is part of the reason that you're hesitant about this deal, Chris, is because the Tampa Bay Rays and how they do business, that's the people that you're doing business with?
I trust, politics is a lot about trust. And as I mentioned, I trust Ken Welch. And during a lot of these negotiations, I met with Brian and Brian Auld and Matt Silverman. I can say that for the most part, I trust them. I have doubts of whether or not Stu Sternberg has Pinellas County's best interests at heart. or even the Tampa Bay area's best interest at heart.
And that's from everything. That's from your entire time dealing with him, not just what
No,
has
just
happened about
from the totality of him owning the Rays.
Okay.
You know, he's not a Jeff Vinnick. You know, Jeff Vinnick
to be fair, nobody is.
Well, yeah, I mean that's true.
Yeah.
But you look at the Glazers, you look at, you know, other owners that, you know, they're like backbones of the community. And I don't know if, you know, Mr. Sternberg has that same, you know, when he's no longer the owner of the Rays, he's not going to be around. And so I don't think he has a long-term concern with what happens to our area. And so, you know, if his number, and it's fine that, you know, he's a business owner. I'm a capitalist, you know, I'm all for him making $1. And he's, you know, made over $1 billion so far with the Rays. And I'm, you know, more power to him.
Right.
But, you know, my concern is not his bottom line. And so, you know, he and I have different priorities, which is fine, but, you know, that's just how it is.
Chris, what is the backlash? I mean, I know it's kind of something that you have to deal with as a public figure, but I mean, you've dealt with an incredible amount of backlash over the last couple of weeks throughout this entire thing. I mean, what's your kind of main message to people out there that are thinking, you know, you can't control what people think. Trust me, I get it too. People think at times people think I'm the worst thing in the world based on the opinions that I have about sports. But like, what's your message to people out there? Because like you said, when we started this conversation, you are a Rays fan. You're worried about the people that live in our area. And as you said, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you want baseball to stay here. But what do you say to those people that are thinking like, there's no way Chris wants baseball here. I don't trust him.
No, I mean, I go to 8 or 10 Rays games a year. And like I said, I could talk about the Rays all day. I mean, we can talk about Junior Caminero. We can talk about their minor league system, Carson Williams, Xavier Isaac. You know, they have some of the best baseball minds in baseball. I think there's like 10 or 12 general managers in the league, in Major League Baseball, that at some point worked for the Rays. And so, you know, and I want people to know, if the Rays leave, I will be one of those people that is sad. I mean, when I vote no, it's not something I'm happy about. And so I don't look at it as, you know, oh, you know, this is something I want to do. But I look at it not through baseball, and I look at it through the bottom line. And the other person that voted no on the commission is also a big baseball fan. After we voted against the deal at the very next meeting, we were talking about baseball. And so, you know, voting against the stadium subsidy like we did has nothing to do with, oh, we don't like the Rays, we don't like Stu or whatever. We didn't like how the deal was presented and, you know, what the deal stood for. If the Philadelphia Phillies asked for $300 million, asked for $200 million, I'm voting against that. I mean, because it has nothing to do with the team. It has nothing to do with, you know, whether or not I like baseball. It has to do with the bottom line. And okay, is this deal good for our taxpayers, or is this, you know, or is this bad for our taxpayers? And I thought that the Rays deal was bad for our taxpayers, and that's why I opposed it. And that's why I'm adamant that they need to, you know, they should have played in Pinellas.
Do you think that part of the reason why you weren't conferred, or you said the Rays, they didn't speak to anybody on the commission, right? So it wasn't just that they didn't keep you abreast of the negotiations with Hillsborough County.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably in July they didn't really need my vote because they had 5 other ones.
Right.
And so, you know, okay, well, it's 5-2. The hurricane hit. I want to give the Rays the benefit of the doubt that after their stadium gets demolished, they were probably shell-shocked and had no idea what they were going to do.
Right.
You know, I can't speak to why they didn't talk to anyone on the commission. You know, I would have picked up the phone and updated us, and but that's just a decision that they made.
Yeah, and looking at the whole thing is the possibility. What are you hearing on the possibility of the money going back to fix Tropicana Field, to get them back in there for the next couple of years? Well, obviously it's not in 2025, but what are you hearing as far as like the insurance, how much it's going to cost, those kind of the answers that need to be questioned?
I think that the city is going to be voting on that later on this week.
Okay.
And so we'll see how that goes. There is an interesting little wrinkle in their contract that could keep the Rays there an extra year, which would be good. And I think if we extend the bonds out, and maybe negotiate something a little bit better for taxpayers, then maybe that that extra year will be good.
Chris, before I let you go, man, and I really do appreciate the chat. I mean, this has been very enlightening to a lot of people here in the Tampa Bay area. But is there a concern that not coming to an agreement here is going to force the Rays to leave, and then an area that looks so promising to be just revitalized, over the next 30, 40, 50 years is just kind of going to remain the same, right? And it's not bad because, I mean, obviously we love it. We live here. But how do you balance that whole thing out of like, I do want to make sure that I'm speaking for the people that have, got me in this position, but also realizing that, again, we got to balance out the short term versus the long term here.
Yeah. I mean, I have never once said or thought to myself, okay, if I do this, the Rays are going to leave. Because as I've mentioned, for 10 plus years, Stu's threatened to leave.
But this doesn't make it more real, though, Chris. Like by saying that, you know what I mean? Like I get what you're saying, because we've heard that. We know the Montreal plan, the 20. We understand that, but this isn't a little bit more of a, because we're coming up to that date, right? Once we get closer to a certain time of knowing, like, hey, they can only be at the Tropical here. I know we can extend it a year, but does it being closer to that end date affect that kind of vision, even though you know what it's been like the last decade or so?
We're like the 10th or 11th TV market. In the nation, and I believe the Rays, while the attendance is not great all the time, the TV ratings are very good.
Yes.
And I don't think Major League Baseball will want a team to relocate, especially the other owners that want expansion, because the owners get money in their pocket when the league expands, not when an owner moves. And especially, with what just happened in Oakland. And so, okay, if he moves, where is he moving to? Because he has to find a city that's going to give him, $600 or $800 million.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of the big,
or sell to an owner that's going to build their own stadium somewhere. When we have, money sitting here in Pinellas County, from the city and from the county, that is, waiting on a good partner to negotiate with.
Right. Man, Chris, this has been a very enlightening conversation. Yeah. Chris Latvala, Pinellas County Commissioner. Chris, we appreciate your time today, man. Thank you so much. And I mean, we'll definitely be keeping our eye on the entire unfolding of these events. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
You too. Thank you, Jay.
Good stuff there. Chris Latvala. Listen, I want to get to this real quick for John Momola. Understand this man has a job to the people of those he represents is what he chose to be. If the people he represents will be affected by, yes, he has to answer for that. He's doing his job. Yeah, but also what Chris said was that the people that he represents, they're on the beach. A lot of them are saying no. I mean, and who are we to kind of tell them that he's wrong? I mean, unless we can get a study done with people there in his jurisdiction saying that, oh no, we don't care about the beaches and we don't care about, where that money goes, and we care more about a ballpark, then I'd have to agree. Again, I think that there is a way around it. I think, and again, I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but there's got to be a way for our local government to be able to reach out to our national government, to FEMA, to help out with the beaches there, so we can find a way to not only replenish the beaches after these two storms and keep baseball here in the Tampa Bay area. One thing that I did glean, and I want to hear from you if you were just watching that interview, and man, I can't thank Chris Latvala enough for his time. Listen, you may not agree with his politics, you may not agree with everything that he had to say, but he did have the stones to be able to come on here with me and chat for about 30 minutes or so about this entire thing. So if you have questions or comments, leave them there on the screen. We definitely want to get to you here about that. One of the biggest things I took away from that entire discussion is that Chris Latvala trusts Ken Welch. He trusts Brian Auld. He trusts Matt Silverman. But he does not trust Stu Sternberg. I mean, he was very kind of nice in how he was kind of trying to pose that thing. And I get it, right? He wasn't trying to like openly badmouth the guy, because you are trying to, in good faith, work with him to be able to keep the Rays in Pinellas County. But you could just tell right there, he does not trust Stu Sternberg. And when Stu comes out and, well, he doesn't come out, he doesn't say anything. The Rays, regardless of who it is, doesn't reach out to the Pinellas County commissioners and let them know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, boom, here comes an announcement that they're going to Hillsborough for the year. It may not be the make or break thing, right? That may not have been the thing that turns a no to a yes or a no. But if you already had reservations, if you already had hesitation, that kind of thing does not help. It does not help. And the fact that you look at the Rays with the ability to sell the team and to still maintain that land there in the, in that Pinellas County, in that gas plant district. Yeah, I mean, that's something that it gave him pause. Karen says, not true. Montreal would take them full time in a hot minute. I don't disagree. I don't agree with that, because we know that baseball already didn't work in Montreal. So what Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball doesn't want to do, they don't want to go back to a city where baseball didn't work in the first place and try to give it another chance. That's why the only way they want to try to get back in the Canadian market, if there is desire, if there's a fan base, obviously if they can make some money. But it seemed like, we looked at the Montreal deal from the Tampa Bay side, but we didn't necessarily look at it from the Montreal, the MLB side, right? Where you want to get that back in that market. If you're MLB, you don't want it to just be Toronto, but you don't have to try to figure out a way to pack a stadium for all 81 home games. It'd be half, right? Maybe that will work. And it's more of an event rather than just a thing that you're doing day in, day out, night in, night out. But man, I'm thinking about this entire thing. It just seems like to me, there's going to be more of a delay on this deal tomorrow, when they vote once again, push the bonds off. And I doubt that the discussions that needed to be had were had. I mean, before the vote tomorrow. And I think it's December 13th, December 15th. Colleen Wright, who joined us from the Tampa Bay Times last week, she told us it's going to be there in the middle of December. But if that's the hesitation, the money going to the beaches, if they don't figure that out in another 4 weeks, I mean, is that going to happen? Is a yes going to be levied by the majority of the voters there in the county commission? I doubt it, because we know that the trust is not going to change, right? You can hear it in Chris's voice. There's that hesitation from him working with the Tampa Bay Rays, and it wasn't just what has happened in the last 2 or 3 months. You heard him invoke the names of Jeffrey Vinnick, and I mentioned nobody's Jeffrey Vinnick, but also the Glazer family, right? And I get it. I know people are looking at Chris and going, "You're selfish, and you don't care about baseball here in the Tampa Bay area." Listen, it's, even though he has a obligation to the people that he represents, baseball not being here in the Tampa Bay area is not good for anybody. He may have reservations about the deal. And, you may think that priority-wise, they're lower on your list than they are for his. But baseball not being here is not good for anybody. Chris included, his people in his area included, because you want more people here. You want more things for people to do so they can come down here in the Tampa Bay area, but especially there in Pinellas County. We see people going to Owl Lang. We see people going to St. Pete there. God, it's so nice down there, and it's been developed so much over the last couple of years. It's kind of crappy to think that baseball could not be there, right? It's going to be in Hillsborough County in 2025, but where do they go from there? That's going to be the big question that needs to be answered. Is it just going to be 1 year in Hillsborough County? As of now, it looks like that's the plan. But where's that money going to go to fix Tropicana Field? Like, where's that money come from? Right? Brad, Jay, please explain why it's not good for us to lose baseball. I just think less events, less things for our people to, you got to think it's not just the baseball stadium, right? And the people that work there and all the jobs there, but it's surrounding, right? The hotels and, any of the other shops. And of course, it's going to be bigger if the new stadium is built, right? If you have a new entire kind of downtown area. But listen, there are people that spend their hard-earned money that aren't from the Tampa Bay area that spend their money down there in St. Pete, in Pinellas County, to come watch the Rays play. It may not be just to watch the Rays, right? It may be to watch their team. And we've seen that. Listen, I know it's a big point of contention for people when you see the Rays playing the Yankees, and there is thousands of New Yorkers here, right? You see it when they play the Red Sox as well. You see it when they play teams that they don't play very often. They don't host the Chicago Cubs every year. But, man, you see a bunch of Chicago fans when they do. St. Louis Cardinals is another team. We went to go see the Braves and the Phillies last year, and there were some Braves fans, but there were a ton of Philadelphia fans that were here in the building at Tropicana Field. So you got to think about that. And Brad, I'm not saying I'm looking at the homeowners, renters that are taxpayers. I'm talking about, and I'm assuming that you're talking about if the new deal goes through, because right now, okay, are you suffering as a homeowner? Are you suffering as a renter right now as a taxpayer in Pinellas County because of the Tampa Bay Rays? I don't think a lot of people are saying that, right? So that's something that you got to be privy to as well. It's week-to-week show / entertainment that draws revenue and tourism. You lose that, you will lose revenue. Yeah, without a doubt, John. I don't disagree with that at all. But if you're looking at it from Chris's perspective, is that the most important thing for the people he represents? When they're looking at their houses just affected by the storm, when they're concerned about tourism on our beaches, if they don't live downtown, and let's say they're not a baseball fan, that kind of thing does not really concern them. It does not really affect them. Not saying I agree or disagree or what kind of number that is, but I'm just kind of looking at it because it's so easy to say, I'm a baseball fan. Screw this guy, Chris Latvala. I don't care what he has to say. I don't agree with him. He sucks, right? Like, I don't like that, right? I think we got to be able to see things from differing viewpoints here. If that's anything we've learned over the last couple of years when it comes to sports, when it comes to politics, when it comes to all these different things, we got to be more open to differing opinions to ours, right? Chris said it himself too. He's not the only person on the county commission. But if he can't get enough people if the Rays can't get enough people to get this deal done, it's not just on him. It's on the Rays to make this right? So I think it's a step in the right direction that Chris Latvala today spoke with Ken Welch, the city mayor, the St. Pete city mayor. And we know Ken, a big baseball fan. He has been a guy that has been spearheaded this entire thing. Brad saying people will come to St. Pete for the beaches, and if we spend more in the stadium, our beaches will suffer. I mean, Brad, if you listen to what the conversation was that we just had with Chris Latvala, that is a priority of his, right? To take that money that is being used or could be used for the new Rays Stadium and the surrounding area and put that towards our beaches. My question to him was, can't we all just get along? Can't we find a balance? Can't there be both? Right? But again, I go back to this, and our guy Zach Blobner is going to join us here any minute. Can't wait to hear what he has to say on this topic, but also talk some Gators football as well. But that distrust between Chris Latvala and Stu Sternberg is something that is just sticking in my craw. And I just wonder, and I asked Chris, like, what would it take? And if you missed it, you can go back and watch it. And of course, we'll kind of podcast this later and post this, post the entire show, of course, but also post just the interview by itself later so you can listen to the chat that we just had. But I just wonder if there's anything that the Rays could do to change Chris's mind. He said that, all right, there's a lot of different things that have to be done, but I don't know, man. I really don't know. All right, let's keep the conversation going. Let's bring in my former partner in crime, Zach on the mic. Zach Blobner joins us. What's up, Z-Man? How are you?
I'm good, man. I hope you can hear me all right. Trying to get
the
connection out here in good old Plant City. You don't know if you're getting strawberries or strong Wi-Fi half the time.
Oh, I like that. Did you happen to listen to the chat with Chris Latvala?
I heard a little bit of it. I saw some of the snippets, and then I was trying to get my own stuff going here so I could connect to you at 1 o'clock.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, just kind of your opinion of the whole situation. And Chris was very gracious with his time. Took about a half hour to chat with me, and I kind of asked him a little bit of everything because he is the guy that was against this from the beginning. And unfortunately, Zach, as much as he talks about putting the people that he represents first, and I get that, right? That's your job, right? He's worried and concerned about the beaches. I get that. But the other thing that really stands out to me was that he said he trusts Brian Auld. He trusts Matt Silverman. He trusts even Ken Welch, who we had a conversation with today. He just does not have that same level of confidence in Stu Sternberg. And I think, to me, I look at his vote, and he kind of gave me a way where the vote could change, but he just seems like a guy that's probably going to stay on the no side.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It sucks. I mean, again, this is something we've, as a community, both sides of the Bay, just collectively been waiting on a solution for so long. And, I don't think I speak alone in this, regardless of if you thought it was the best solution or not. It felt like there was a weight lifted off of our shoulders here as baseball fans in the area. And again, whether or not you support the Rays, just to have kind of a finality to this 20-year long process of figuring out what the heck's next. I felt like we had all kind of moved on and we were in a good place. So to kind of have to dig up all those old frustrations and wounds and go through all the things again, I think it's just tough for everybody involved. Whether you're talking about the people that live in St. Pete, the people that are in Tampa, abroad Rays fans, the ones that are close to the situation, the ones that aren't. I mean, it sucks, man. It sucks when you think you have a solution and then it all kind of starts to blow up in your face, or at least seemingly so. The one thing, too, I do want to add a caveat here, Jay, and because you've been through it just as much as I have, is who knows how much of this stuff is legitimate, like actually it blowing up, or just posturing and talking from both sides behind the scenes and in public.
And that's something that kind of Chris alluded to as well. And I asked him, I said, Chris, are you worried that this is going to drive baseball out of Tampa Bay? And it just seems like he thinks this is kind of the latest posturing from Stu Sternberg. He said multiple times that 10 years he's been threatening this. And I don't know if he used the word threaten, but he said he's going to do this and he's going to take the team here. And we've heard that, right? We've heard those kind of questions and concerns from people here in the Tampa Bay area. And we had Stu with us, on at FanFest last year. And, one of the things he said was, I'm going to take a loss on my P&L statement this year. And I just said, and I'm just thinking to myself, Stu, and Stu's been great to us, right? And the Rays have been great to us. But one thing that people don't want to hear, we said it the very next day, one thing people don't want to hear are billionaires complaining about a loss on their P&L, right? Especially for sports, when we know that no sports team, depreciates. The cost always goes up. So even though I may not agree with, Chris in certain areas, I do understand where that level of distrust is when it comes to Stu Sternberg.
Yeah, and that's all good and well. I think collectively I understand that, but why are we even in this position, right? Again, where we're wondering if Stu's going to do this or do that. The stuff that was already going on prior to the hurricanes hitting, let's go there. It had been situated. The vote had been taken. The bonds were promised. We had already kind of handled all that. So I don't disagree with what you're saying or that perspective. I just think that that's not necessarily new news, right? We know how Stu is, for better or worse. And we know how those comments came across. The part that's different, the part that's new, is that you do have potentially new swing votes in there that could destroy the deal because they don't agree to the bonds. And again, that's only part of it, right? The county and the city, different entities, different votes. And ironically, the county, I thought, was the easy one for them. That was the one they felt really good about. St. Pete, that area, the city side of it was the one they were more concerned about. So yeah, I don't even think we're having this conversation if he doesn't come out and there aren't and say basically like we might vote these bonds down. So it's tough for me to kind of like empathize with him because he's telling us the same things he had already thought after a deal was already established. So that's tough for me.
Yeah, I'm with you but I look at that aspect of it. I look at it as like, he hasn't changed though. Right. I mean, that's what people I think are thinking, that he has been on board with this deal the whole time. He hasn't. He was one of the two guys that said no. So for him, people are looking at it as like, oh, well, you should amend. He's like, no, this is even more of a reason for me to say no. And I think that's what people are having trouble kind of rationalizing the whole thing. It's like, this is just more ammunition for him. Like, no, man, the Storms have made it even harder for me to think that like this is a good idea for our people here in the Tampa area, especially the people that he represent. What are you hearing as far as the latest when it comes to the Rays Stadium and what they're looking at as far as Tropicana Field and just kind of their overall well-being as a organization as a whole?
Yeah. And I mean, I think the last time we were on air together and having this type of chat, I had used a lot of what Rob Manfred said in some of the tea leaves we were reading there. And I said, look, they're going to try to get this roof done as quick as possible and stay in St. Pete and then build the new stadium. It seems like that's definitely the plan that they ended up doing. And, I think Manfred alluded to as much. I also think, and I know we were kind of having a debate about where they could end up for this season. Obviously, it's going to be at Steinbrenner Field right across from Raymond James Stadium. They'll be playing in Tampa. And we talked about how weird that could be. But again, to those comments we heard from Manfred, the commissioner, he seemed like he was more than willing to step in and kind of make that happen, force that to happen and put it on the fast track. So starting there, to answer your question, the Rays heading to Tampa for a year, I know that the big groundswell of response from folks was like, that's where it should be. Like, they're going to wait till you see how many people show up. And I can tell you firsthand that like, being in some of the other places where the Rays tried to be on Tampa's turf and do some things, maybe not build a full stadium, but, they did actually with the Ybor situation. And, they've done watch parties during playoffs, like big years. And I've hosted, like I've been at, nobody shows up. And I'm not talking about like light attendance or light, like amounts of people. I'm talking about like minuscule amounts. So, it helps the Tampa side that there's not as big of a capacity for that stadium, but even if they sell it out every game, that'll be close to what the Rays were averaging, these last few years, these strong seasons, not this past one, but the playoff years. So I think the ball is really, quote unquote, in Tampa's court to show up this year. But I also think that the Rays aren't confident that they're going to sell out every game there. And it's going to be almost more like see, this is what we've been saying. Like everybody wants it in Tampa, but y'all didn't even come out to support it in a way where you would kind of change the tide maybe of that conversation. So it's a gamble, I think, in that world. Because if that does happen, then the Rays are going to look bad by taking it back to the St. Pete side. So that's a big part of it. I think obviously there's a lot of confidence that they can get the roof situated for a couple of seasons there. And I know for the most part, the Rays want to stay on track. They want to start, building the parking lots, doing all the things, and they want to have this new stadium in St. Pete open 2028 on opening day, barring the first part of the conversation, those bonds and everything else included.
Yeah, and I wonder how that's going to look too, because like let's say they have 8,000 people. I mean, 8,000 people inside of Steinbrenner Field is still going to feel like a lot of people because it's just not as you're filling up 80% pretty much of the stands. So 8,000 people at Tropicana Field will all spread out versus 8,000 people with everybody right on top of you is going to feel much differently. So even if they have similar numbers, it's going to be a completely different feel. And what have we been saying for years when it comes to the Lightning games? It's going to feel like an event going to the games at Steinbrenner Field, in my opinion. People are going to want to go because they want to say that they've done it. Maybe it's only one time, right? But they're looking at it as like, oh, I want to go one time. And you're right. For all these people that have been complaining all these years for, I don't want to drive over the bridge, I got to make all these decisions so early. Well, now it's time to put up or shut up. But I agree with you. The Rays could look at it that one way and say, see, I told you, if by the end of the season there's like 4,000 people there and it's just like awful, but what if it's a huge success, right? What if it's a rousing success? They pack it out. They have a good team. Because here's the other thing people are forgetting when they're talking about this whole thing. Zach, if they're good, they're getting all these pitchers back, right? You got Junior. You know what I mean? Like if this team's really good, people are going to show up. We saw it at Tropicana Field, right? Maybe not to the extent, of what it should have been, but what if this team is good? What if they're a first place team? People are going to want to show up, right? And then what happens? Like you have an entire year. Like what if the Rays won the World Series at
that would be
Field?
insane.
Like, but just think about like even if they don't win the World Series, but let's say they make a long postseason run,
yeah,
and the majority of those games are at Steinbrenner Field, right? Like that would be crazy. And then what happens? Like, all right, now we're going back to Pinellas County. I mean, ultimately, that's what probably is the best thing for them. But man, this 2025 season, like, you want to talk about an unknown season. Like, I don't know if anybody knows what to expect this upcoming year for the Rays.
Yeah, and let me work backwards from that. Like, first of all, I think it'd be sick. It'd be awesome if they were really good this year and had a postseason run, and we were able to kind of go see that in an intimate setting, like Steinbrenner Field versus, the bigger ballparks that they could be playing at. I do want to also point out, though, that even if they crush it at Steinbrenner Field, that still doesn't make money magically appear for a new stadium, right? Like, and that was the whole reason. The Rays have told you, people in St. Pete have told you that they think that basically it could, the team and the franchise could do better in terms of poll and attendance and logistics in Tampa. The problem is there was no money to build a stadium. So if the Rays sell out every game and it's awesome, that part of it doesn't necessarily change for the franchise or for the area. I mean, I think we've already kind of learned that. Again, that's why I think a lot of this is kind of rehashing. But I do want to, and I want to ask you this. So to your point of it filling up, especially if they're good and people showing up, it's right a walking distance away from Ray J, right, Jay? You cover those games. You go to a Bucks Bears game. What's that stadium look like? It's a lot of Chicago.
Yeah.
You go to an Eagles Bucks game. What's that stadium look like?
Right.
So yeah, you're right. That stadium might fill up. It might feel intimate. It might not be for the Rays. So that's just something to be real.
It won't. No, it won't. No, you're spot on. I just mentioned this too. When people are wondering like the money of people coming down here and spending money here, I said, yeah, well, a lot of times when you're talking about tourist money and that bed tax, it's people coming from out of town supporting their teams. You see the thousands of Yankees and Red Sox, and when they don't play them all the time, the Cardinals and the Cubs. Yeah, that's going to happen at Steinbrenner Field too, especially when you play the Yankees how many times, 13, 14 times a year. It's going to happen. Like, that's what happens when you live in the Tampa Bay area. So it's definitely not going to be one of those things where it's just going to be Tampa Bay fans that are going to, people are going to look to, all right, well, I can go to multiple games. I can do multiple things. And it's going to be people that probably don't live here in the Tampa Bay area. So you're spot on. That's going to happen as well. Did you freeze? I think you froze. Oh, there you go. You're there. Good?
Yeah, I'm freezing. I'm frozen a little bit. I don't know if you got me.
You're back. You're back.
The strawberries are back. The Wi-Fi is gone.
Yeah, it's all good. Hey,
that's a great point. And that's why part of it for
we're hanging on. Patrick, what if the Rays beat the Yankees at Steinbrenner Field? LOL. That's from Patrick Lamberson. How about that? Hold on, Zach. I'm going to remove you. See if you can get back on. My guy, Zach Blobner. Technical difficulties out there in Plant City. It's all good, buddy. There you go. You're back. Okay. Before I let you go, No, you're good. You're back. You're good. You with me?
I think so.
Okay, you're good. All right, before I let you go, I definitely want to ask you about the Gators and their win over LSU. Billy Napier's not going anywhere, much to your chagrin, but DJ Lagway certainly looks the part, and it's always good to beat the Bayou Bengals. You and I were wondering if they were going to win another game, and now earlier today, we're texting about them possibly playing USF in the Gasparilla Bowl. I mean, what has been the biggest key to the turnaround for the Gators? Oh, he's so happy. He's so happy. Look, guys, he's so happy. He's frozen, but he's happy. Remove, bring it back. Oh, Zach, we miss you, buddy. We love you. How about those Gators? We're just going to continue to talk to the black screen here to see if Zach will come back. I want him to get his 2 cents in on the Gators. It's funny. We just had a 30-minute chat with Chris Latvala and no issues. And Zach, we're talking about the Gators. I think a Florida State fan, DJ Shism, is putting us to shame. Okay, go ahead. Get what you got in the Gators. Go ahead.
Yeah, Brian Kelly trying to cut me out. I get it, man. I would too after your LSU Tigers just crap the bed in Gainesville. Yeah, it's look, DJ's great. He's gonna have a great career. I think he's got a ton of talent. He's one of the reasons to feel good. Ironically, it's the defense that impressed me. I mean, they sacked LSU more in that game than they had been sacked all season. So I don't know what's going on. They've made some changes, staffing and like approach wise. To the defense and what they were doing. It seems to be paying off, though. They're playing with their hair on fire. And if they're playing great defense and you have a special playmaker at quarterback like Lagway, you can make some things happen, and especially if you're at home. So LSU, I don't think, is one of the best teams in the SEC. I don't think they're a top 25 team, but I think that that's an area for the Gators to kind of, get a win under their belt. And you think about what could have been, obviously, if Lagway would have stayed healthy against Georgia. And Obviously, Texas was just not a good game for them. But again, Lagway didn't. So the Gator fans, I think, are optimistic about DJ Lagway, optimistic about some of the players. I don't know how any Florida fan can look at another one or themselves in the mirror and still be like, oh, yeah, let's see if Billy can be the guy. I think it's a mess. And I've told you about this. We've talked about this up at Florida. They have nobody that can fire the AD, Scott Strickland. And Scott Strickland's tied to Billy Napier. So why would he let him go unless he absolutely had to? Right. I think the boosters want Billy out, but it's an unfortunate circumstance where like they don't have the guy to make the call to get rid of the guy that has to make the call. So it's just kind of complicated. It's a mess, bro. But DJ Lagway is the real deal. Billy Napier isn't and probably never will be in Gainesville. And just focus on the positives. I mean, a win's a win, and it's always fun to beat a rival.
Zach, let everybody know what you got going on, man. At Zach on the mic on all social media platforms. What's the kind of the next couple weeks, months, years looking like for Z-Man?
Yeah, still a lot of things in the works. You know, I'm gonna keep my cards close to the vest on that one a little bit, but you can always find me at Zach on the mic. You know, and just in every way, shape, and form, just nothing but a ringing endorsement for you, Jay, and for keeping up with what Jay's doing here on YouTube and on social media. And, you know, the one thing that I think when we put our heads together after everything kind of went down was like, this doesn't mean to like go away from local. This just means that we need to remind people how important it is to support local and support each other. If you want sports content and you want Tampa Bay stuff, like you have to support things just like this that Jay's doing. So nothing but love, brother. Appreciate you bringing me in. Sorry the connection got a little wonky there. I blame Plant City, but nothing but support, man. And I can't wait to see you keep doing great things and for this to just keep growing, brother.
Appreciate you, buddy. Much love. Give my love to your better half, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Likewise. Later, brother.
All right, buddy. The one and only Zach Blobner. Again, check him out on all social media platforms at Zach on the mic. And Lady Eva, we'll get to this real quick before we have our next chat with Jake Asman. What happened to Jay and Zach on WDAE? Unfortunately, we got let go a couple of Mondays ago. Just kind of the nature of the beast, right? The business side of the entire thing. 5% cuts across all of the iHeart empire across of North America. But, hey, doesn't mean we're slowing down. Zach, I know he's got some irons in the fire, so good luck to him, man. He's got a bright future. If he wants to stay here and do his thing, I know he's going to, whatever he puts his mind to, he's going to absolutely crush it. So we will definitely have him here on the Recher podcast. I'm kind of moving it along. John Mamola is waiting for his invite. Well, maybe if we have something on dramatic Chicago losses, we'll have John Mamola on to talk about Bear down. The Bears are down. That is right. A crazy game yesterday against the Green Bay Packers. I had this conversation on Twitter yesterday. I want to continue to have this here on the podcast before we get to Jake Asman. What is your favorite sports rivalry that doesn't include your favorite team? Right? Because everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm a Red Sox fan. I grew up in Boston. Red Sox Yankees is the best. I'm from Detroit. I love Michigan, Ohio State, blah, blah, blah. And then my brother, oh man, Rich, you're definitely getting one. I'll get you both on for sure. Man, I don't know if the planet can handle me and my brother. We used to do a show together called the MMA NY show, me and my brother, back in the day when I lived in New York. And we did everything backwards. Instead of going like football, basketball, baseball, hockey, MMA, we did MMA, hockey, baseball. Like we went in reverse order, and it was real. Hey man, you got to get those reps, get those repetitions in. So my brother, I love you, and really cool to have you here. But yes, I want to ask that question. What is your favorite rivalry that doesn't include one of your favorite sports teams? I said it yesterday because Ravens and Steelers is one of the best. It really is. And I'm not a Ravens fan, not a Steelers fan, but we're going to bring in one of the best Jets fans I know, the one and only Jake Asman, joining us on the program today, the Jake Asman Show. He's going live. Every little morsel of New York Jets news that gets disseminated out there. Jake is live, so make sure you go check him out. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Jay, I'm doing as well as one can do as a disgusted Jet fan, knowing the team is 3-8. So I'm hanging in, man. But congrats on this show and everything you're doing now with this podcast. I'm excited to tune in.
Thank you, my friend. I'll ask you before we get to the Jets and you being at UFC 309. What's your favorite sports rivalry that doesn't include one of your teams? I said Ravens Steelers because it's just one of those things where like it's on, everything stops. You're like, I don't care. I'm watching this. I could see him play 17 weeks in a row. If you had to watch one rivalry, not including one of your teams, who would it be?
Ooh, great question. I love the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry.
Nice.
I have friends that went to both schools, so it's always contentious in the group chat every year that time of year. So we're coming up on that. So I'd probably go Michigan-Ohio State if I had to pick one that didn't involve one of my teams.
I love that. I love that. I was keeping a close eye on the Jets yesterday. It looked like they were on their way to getting a win after falling, but just like I've been saying the last 2 years, I erroneously picked them to win the Super Bowl last year. I thought Rodgers was going to come in, do the Brady thing, right? Catch everybody by surprise. And then you see what the last 2 years have happened. Like, I feel for you, brother. Half of my family are Jets fans, and it's just like it's a facepalm every Sunday. Was this the lowest of the lows after losing that game to Anthony Richardson and the Colts?
This wasn't just because I already accepted a while ago this team was cooked. Yeah, the lowest of the low was losing to New England the way they did. They allowed Jacoby Brissett to go down the field in like 5 or 6 plays and lead a 70-yard game-winning drive against a Jet defense that was supposed to be their greatest strength this year. And since they fired Robert Saleh, the defense has been one of the worst in the league. They were not playing particularly great before then. And, their special teams, which won them so many games the last few years, it's why everyone's like, how could they have a worse record with Rodgers than they did with Zach Wilson? It's, well, their defense was top 5 the last 2 years. It's in the 20s this year. And their kicker, Greg Zuerlein, didn't miss a kick at all last year. He missed 3 all last year. This year, before they finally phantom injury reserved him, he was leading the NFL in missed kicks. So between the poor defense, the kicking, and just Rodgers at times looking washed, at other times just being okay, it's not good enough for what we thought. So to me, that was the lowest point. Yesterday, I mean, honestly, I'm almost numb to it, Jay. Like, I expected them to lose. With the second, they made the decision to kick the field goal and not go for it on 4th and 2 to try and put the game away. I expected the Colts to go down the field and score because it's happened too many times this year. It was the same situation as the Patriots game when they lost.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy about that defense. You look at offense, and sometimes it's difficult. All right, Rodgers coming off the injury. There is a ton of – I think that's the hardest thing for me to kind of rationalize. I watch, not as much as you, but I watch a ton of their games, and there's a lot of – on paper, and on paper, there's talent on both sides of the football, and that's what's got to be extremely frustrating. The law firm of Williams and Williams to go with Hassan Reddick, and you have Sauce Gardner, and like – defensively, I think it is more. I'll ask you, what is more troubling, or what is more kind of mind-boggling, the struggles of the offense or the defense?
I think it's the defense because you still have a lot of the same players that have been here. Now, the general manager, Joe Douglas, who's on his last legs here, completely dismantled this once great defensive line. Some of it's bad luck as well, right? Jermaine Johnson is one of their best players. He goes down in week 2, so that's a huge blow for the defense. But I mean, you look at the list of names that are there. They shouldn't be this bad. Sure, it's hard to be a top 3 defense 3 years in a row. You're going to have injuries, things come up, whatever. But, I mean, it really all started with firing Robert Saleh. He's a defensive-minded guy. Jeff Ulbrich became the interim. He's still calling the plays. I think he stretched too thin, and that was kind of the downfall of this year. And this is not to say Robert Saleh is a good coach, because he's not. And people are now romanticizing Saleh to be this great coach. He's not. The mistake, though, was not firing him at the end of last year if he was only going to get 5 games going into this year. So it's just been a mess, man. And you being in Tampa, Jay, like, I'm with you. I looked at what Tampa did with Brady, 7 games, missing the quarterback. They had him, and then the rest is history. That, to me, was the Jets. Like, Rodgers was supposed to have an elite running game, which he doesn't have. He was supposed to have an elite defense, which he doesn't have. He was supposed to have an elite special teams unit, which he doesn't have. So, yes, he certainly has been disappointing, but he's given them more than enough chances in some of these games to win. And the other areas of the team that were supposed to help this team get over the hump and at least be a playoff team, it hasn't been there. So you combine all that, and it's probably, not even probably, to me it is, it's the most disappointing year in the history of the franchise, given the hype and excitement and waiting for this quarterback for 2 years. And to be 3-8 and not even have a chance to sniff the playoffs before Thanksgiving is just a total disgrace.
Yeah, you're talking about complimentary football, right? And being able to just get contributions from so many different players. And you look at Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, and you're like, oh my gosh. What did Jets fans really believe that the acquisition of Devontae Adams was going to kind of right the ship for that offense?
That was the hope, right? But the thing is, when they made the move for Devontae, they were 2-4 at the time, and it was like, well, you don't really have any wiggle room. Like, you got to go. Like, you got to start winning games right away. And it took a couple of games for them to, recapture some of what they were. But even still, like, Rodgers does not want to throw the ball downfield. He's so afraid of getting hit. He's a one-read quarterback at this stage, and it's sad because I think he's clearly playing through something, because he doesn't even look like the guy we saw at the beginning of the year when he was taking some chances downfield. But the combination of the injury last year, the hits he has taken this year, and just being 41, he's not Brady. And I really thought he was going to give us something similar to what Tom did for you guys down in Tampa. That just hasn't happened. And Devontae, was supposed to open some things up, and I think he's helped Garrett Wilson maybe get some more looks on the outside and not having to deal with the number one corner game in, game out. But it hasn't worked the way they thought. I mean, the bottom line is, since Devontae's been here, they won one total game.
So we're headed for the Jets and the Giants probably being a top 5, top 6, top 7 in the draft next year. If you're the GM, Joe Douglas, if he's still there, what position are you looking at? I know it's tough without having the draft board in front of me, but if you say like, hey, if a player's there and it fits this need, this is the position that I would look at.
Well, I think Douglas is gone, right? I'd be shocked if he's here. I mean, he's 30-64 now as a general manager. I mean, and look, it's a very complicated resume because there are some really good moves mixed into some disastrous decisions, right? I mean, the whole reason why they had to pursue Rodgers in the first place is because they picked Zach Wilson and how badly, he was as an NFL quarterback. So it really starts there, and they've never been able to recover or get out from under that catastrophic decision. But, you look at whoever the next GM's going to be. To me, if there's a quarterback you love, you have to take that guy. But unlike some of the other quarterbacks they've drafted in the first round, that guy should sit behind a veteran. I think it's so hard to play quarterback for the Jets in the New York market, whether you're a rookie or a Hall of Famer like Rodgers. I think throwing a rookie out there would be a mistake. Let that guy sit. The last time the Jets actually had a first-round pick sit behind a veteran was Chad Pennington, and that worked. And that's a long time ago already. So that's what I would do if there's someone you like. If there's really not someone you like, I mean, everyone would love to trade back, get more picks. I'm okay with that. This team needs corner help, defensive tackle help. I mean, if Devontae's not here, they could certainly use another wide receiver. There is some talent on this team. I mean, it's not completely bare, but they have a lot of needs, but none bigger than quarterback. But you can't force it if there's someone you don't like. So it's complicated because what we're hearing is it's not a great quarterback class coming out. So who knows?
Yeah, but we know how it goes when we get closer and closer to the combine. They look at these guys in T-shirt and shorts, and all of a sudden they're Greek gods. And you got guys like Kenny Pickett, who who was a first-round pick to the Steelers, and he's not even there 2.5 years later.
Right.
Jordan Whitehead was a guy that went from the Jets to the Buccaneers in the offseason. He hasn't made a couple of games this year. He's made some splashes, but there's been some games this year, especially recently, where it hasn't been all that great. Did the Jets miss him at all? What was your takeaway from him leaving, and what kind of impact did he have there with the Jets?
Yeah, he was up and down as a Jet, I would say. I got to know him a little bit personally. He's a really good dude, but
awesome guy.
I don't know. I don't think they really have missed him. I mean, the Jets safety position is still a weakness of the defense if you're going to nitpick things, but their problems are so much greater beyond Jordan Whitehead. So I wish him all the best. I mean, he was part of one of the craziest games, if not the craziest game I've ever been at, which was the home opener last year when Rodgers goes down 4 plays in, but Jordan Whitehead picks off Josh Allen 3 times, and the Jets won in on a walk-off punt return in overtime. So he's a big part of like my sports fandom memory from being at that game. But I really haven't followed how he's done in Tampa. So this is actually the first anyone's asked me about Jordan Whitehead since he left the Jets.
There you go, buddy. There you go. We got Tommy Cutlets, it looks like, this weekend. Tommy DeVito taking over Daniel Jones. What's the buzz? Do you remember the buzz from last year with Tommy? And I know it's, obviously the Giants, but like Tommy DeVito and the, the gabagool and everything like that. From your just being up there, what can Tampa Bay and Buccaneer fans expect from just the entire circus that is Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito?
Yeah, he provides energy, right? I mean, the team fed off him last year. It was short-lived. Eventually, he came crashing down to earth. But, for a guy who was a UDFA, had to struggle on the practice squad to get on the roster, I mean, he's a competent quarterback. At least he was at times last year. I don't know if it truly matters in the big picture. I mean, sitting Daniel Jones for the Giants was more about he's got $23 million owed to him next year if he gets hurt and can't pass a physical. So if you already made the decision he's gone, you're not going to risk injury. Same reason why Denver shut down Russell Wilson last year. The same reason why we saw Derek Carr get benched with the Raiders. It's all about that injury guarantee. But, I mean, DeVito could provide some energy, but I wouldn't expect much. I will say this, though. Giants fans love the Tommy DeVito stuff last year. Now you look back on it, the 3 games he won cost you Drake May, cost you Jaden Daniels. So, be careful what you wish for, Giants fans, because if DeVito plays well and you win some games here, that might affect who you take in this year's draft. I guess the one caveat, Jay, is I don't know who the top quarterbacks are right now. I mean, people say Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and then after that, I don't know. And I don't even know if any of those guys are worthy of being top 5 picks. So I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's funny to see Tommy DeVito there because everybody starts dressing like that old picture of The Rock with the black turtleneck with the chain and the fanny pack. Everybody's dressing like that at MetLife Stadium. So that should be fun on Sunday at 1:00. You were at UFC 309 Saturday night at Madison Square Garden. What was your biggest takeaway from the night we'll get into the whole Trump thing and seeing him there, but just like the fighters, just being there, what was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, John Jones is still the GOAT, right? I mean, Stipe is as accomplished as anyone to ever do it at that division, if not the most accomplished heavyweight. And John Jones made it look easy. Like it's crazy how good he is. And what's amazing about Jones is he's 37 years old. He has not fought a lot, and he continues to get in the octagon and make these all-time greats in their respective weight classes, regardless if it's light heavyweight or heavyweight now, and just dismantle them. It's really unbelievable what he continues to do. And, I hope he continues to fight for a long while. We'll see, what they want to do if, Dana and company can get him to fight, Aspinall, which I think is the fight most UFC fans want to see. But, just watching him in person continue to dominate. I mean, the run he's been on for his entire career, I mean, I don't know how you could argue anyone else being the best in the history of the sport. To me, he's the GOAT, and he proved it again on Saturday.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking this after he wins that fight. What is who's the most undeniable GOAT in sports? Right? I think Wayne Gretzky's got to be up there because of the stats of you take away all his goals, his assists, he'll still have more points than everybody. I mean, nowadays people want to throw the LeBron and the MJ conversation, so that probably brings him out. But you'd have to go to others. You'd have to go down the well, right? Like Michael Phelps, or you have to go into the Olympic sports because I think it's harder in baseball, it's harder in football, it's harder in basketball. But I think you look at Wayne Gretzky, I think you look at John Jones. I mean, you start looking at those kind of conversations. There's no doubt I'm with you. It's John Jones and then everybody else. I mean, his only loss was an illegal elbow against Matt Hamill years and years ago. If you go watch the tape and the highlights of that, it's grainy footage. He's been fighting for 17 years. Right. It's pretty wild to think that. But what was it like as well? Being the world's most famous arena. I was there for the first event there when Conor McGregor beat Eddie Alvarez, and just the same building that I went to go watch Barnum and Bailey Circus when I was in 5th grade. I watched the UFC event, but to see their president-elect, whether you're a Trump fan or not, but at the end of the day, it's a big deal to see him walk in there with Dana White. What was it like when he, with Elon Musk, they start walking in with Dana White and doing the walk to the octagon?
Yeah, I knew he was going to be there, and I guess we got word that RFK was going to be there with him too, because there was a photo that was posted of them on the plane on their way to MSG. But I didn't know Elon was going to be there. I didn't know the entire, basically, cabinet was going to be there. Tulsi, Vivek, it was wild, man. I mean, the reception that the president gets when he shows up at these things, it's like a home game for him. I was at the UFC event. I think it was 301 or 302, I forget, but the one that was in Newark, New Jersey, where you had Makachev versus Dustin. Oh, yeah. And I mean, the reception that night was bonkers. And I was at McGregor Poirier in 2021 in Vegas, and Trump was there too. And the reception that night was nuts. So Trump loves coming to these things because it's a home game for him, and he's obviously very close with Dana White, as everyone knows. So it's a wild atmosphere, man. It really is. And the whole night, MSG was wild. It's a great environment for any big event. And, UFC right now, you could argue, is as big as any event out there when they have a huge card like what they had on Saturday. So ton of fun to be there. Crazy that the main event didn't start, though, until after 1 a.m. I don't know why it needs to take that long. That'd be my only complaint. But for those who did stay up to watch it, I mean, you got what you wanted with John Jones doing what he did.
Did you watch Jake Paul, Mike Tyson?
Yeah, I did. I just
you feel guilty.
It was free, not free, but most people have Netflix. It kind of was what I thought, right? I thought if Tyson was going to win, he'd have to knock him out early because you could see he looks like a 58-year-old who doesn't have the stamina to hang with a 27-year-old. Really good. I don't know if Jake Paul's a great boxer, but he's certainly for other he's not an amateur, he's a low-level boxer.
No, for sure. And he's hell of an athlete, man. He's going through training camps.
I know people want to say he hasn't fought anyone, which is true. When he fought, Tyson or the Fury, what's the guy's name? Tommy Fury. Yeah, when he fought Tommy Fury, he obviously lost, but
It was a close fight. It was a close fight.
Yeah.
And listen, Jake, you know this as well as anybody, brother, and you get this because you're like me. You like everything. At the end of the day, people want to talk about the sanctity of sports. It's about entertainment, man. We know our time. This is why you go live as soon as news breaks for the Jets, because people want to react. People want information right up to date, and they want to be entertained. They want to feel like their voice is being heard, and they want to enjoy the things. So, you know, of course, it's not like the sanctity. It's not going to fight for the WBO champion, but shit, man, there's 35 million people tuning in, man. They don't care who the hell he's fighting. Everybody wanted to see just for the chance whether he's going to knock out Mike Tyson or somebody's going to put him on his ass. It's entertainment at the end of the day.
And you know what? The purists don't like it. Well, blame your own sport for not knowing how to market itself over the years, not getting the best fights made. Like the fact that Jake Paul could bring that many people to watch boxing says more about the state of boxing than it does about Jake Paul. No one can fault Jake Paul for being a marketing genius and making himself millions. No one can fault Mike Tyson for getting paid what he got paid to do that. So I'm with you. And, you know, if you're a boxing fan, the other fights on the card, I didn't get to see it because I was out at something before, but the other fights on the card, the Serrano fight, everyone said was really good again.
Amazing.
So you had that, you know, if you didn't get it, if you're a real boxing fan, you had other fights on the card that maybe intrigued you too. So I'm not going to complain about it. I watched. Congrats to Tyson and Paul on their bank accounts, you know, going up. That's how I look at it, you know.
That's right. I'm with you, buddy. Before I let you go, I got to ask you, where do you think Juan Soto is going to end up? I mean, obviously, he's going to break the bank himself. Does he stay with the Yankees? Does he go from the Bronx to Queens and you know, join up with Francisco Lindor and kind of lead them? You know, I look at it like the Puerto Rican Dominican superpowers coming in, leading Steve Cohen to the new generation. But does he look back at like the tenure that he just had and go, man, it was nice to hit in front of, you know, Aaron Judge all these years? Or does he, I hope he doesn't go to the Dodgers. The Dodgers have become the new evil empire now, but does he go somewhere else? Does he stay in New York? What is your gut telling you?
My gut tells me he's either going to be a Yankee or a Met. I really think it comes down to those two teams. I've always felt like he'd be back with the Yankees. I think the Yankees made this move, you know, with the idea of keeping him. That said, if it's only about money, then, all right, he'll probably go to the Mets because the Mets can make an offer that no other team can match. They have the richest owner in professional sports. But if it's close, people might think I'm nuts because, look what he said at his press conference after the World Series. His agent, Scott Boras, he was coached on how to handle that. Judge said very similar things after the Yankee season ended in 2022. I think if it's close, he'd prefer the Yankees. I do. I think he cares about his legacy. I think he understands that once Judge eventually retires, because Judge is significantly older than he is, it's going to be his team. And I think that he understands what winning with the Yankees would do. But if it's only about money, sure, I guess the Mets will make the highest offer here. But if it's close, I think he's back with the Yankees. So I'm still leaning Yankees, but it wouldn't surprise me if he goes to the Mets, because if he's truly just about getting paid and that's the only thing he cares about, what would be the justification for the Mets to not have the biggest offer on the table? That's their biggest strength. The Yankees' advantage is they could pay you. You're on a team that was just in the World Series. You're hitting in front of Aaron Judge and all the mystique and history that goes with being a Yankee. You'll be in Monument Park someday, Juan. But if it's only about the money, he'll be a Met. So it really comes down to what he wants.
Go check him out on Patreon. You see the web right there, the link, patreon.com/JakeAsman Show. Go like and subscribe right now on YouTube at Jake Asman. He's got over 40,000 subscribers. Anytime something happens with the Jets, and we were hanging out together in New York City, was it last year? And Jake was like, I gotta go, and he ran somewhere.
Oh, the Barrett conference, yeah. You know what that was? Morgan Moses got acquired.
There you go.
I'm like, here we go, because that conference was right in the middle of NFL free agency week, and I'm like, this is when the Jets are going to make all their moves. Here we go.
This is the way it goes. Man, you want to talk about working your ass off. My guy, Jake Asman, he's at the top of the list. Jake, I appreciate it, man. You are the best. Best of luck and continued success, my brother. We'll talk to you again soon.
Likewise, Jay. Good luck with the show, man. I'm looking forward to tuning in. You're a great talent, and I'm excited to check this out every day.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks, buddy. The one and only Jake Asman, the best, man. That you got to check that guy out, man. He is the man. He's such a hardworking guy. He really is. Jets, Yankees, a lot of Jets. But you want to talk about passion. Man, he's got a lot of passion and work ethic. And just wherever he is, man, whatever. Like I said, we were at the Barrett Sports Media Conference, the summit last year, and Morgan Moses in free agency with the Jets. He's like, I got to go. And he just picked up his stuff and ran out. And then later on, we saw him that night. It was like, geez, man, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. Jake was working there in Houston for a while. They let him go, and he moved back to New York and just kind of finding his own way. And same thing with me, right? I got let go by WDAE and iHeartRadio a couple Mondays ago, and you can decide, whether you want to sit there and lick your wounds for a couple weeks, a couple months, and do your thing, and then just take your time getting back in it, or you can kind of just jump right back in with both feet. Let's get to some of these. I was asking you a little before about the rivalries. Jake Cobian, what's up, Jay? It's not necessarily a rival, but I love how all the NFC East all equally hate the Cowboys. Yeah, it's weird. Giants and Cowboys have a rivalry, but you ask Eagle fans, they'll be like Eagles and Cowboys, and the Redskins, now Commanders, will say the same thing. It's very unique. The NFC East, it's like insert NFC East team here and the Cowboys. My guy Dan Geary, Lakers, Celtics in the 80s. Think about all the firepower in those series. The Lakers and the Celtics, it does not get better than that. All right, let's bring in our final guest of the show today. He is running ragged for this this USF football team. They just ran. They just ran for another touchdown. My guy Terron Keith, crushing it as always. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
What's going on? I'm doing fine. How about you?
Doing well. History on Saturday. You and the rest of the running back room. I mean, it's just when you guys are running the football like that, when you're running for over 400 yards, I mean, it just seems like whoever gets the call is going to find the end zone. What is that like when you guys are firing on all cylinders like that?
I mean, I love our backfield, honestly. Just like you said, it's like at any moment, any one of us can take it to the crib or got the ability to make a big play on offense. So yeah, like Saturday was fun, everybody in our running back room really got a chance to eat. It's including our young guys. We got some. Not only our old guys, but our young guys can make some shake too now. But yeah, I mean, it just felt good out there. Just thanks to the offensive linemen and our tight ends and receivers, they're all blocking for us. We couldn't do that without them. But you get us in space, we get real dangerous.
Terron, what was it like? What was the message from Coach Golish after? I mean, it's tough to go against Navy, man. They obviously super disciplined, the way they run the football. You guys were on the sideline for a while. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. What was the main message from Coach Golish going into that game last Saturday against Charlotte?
Well, the biggest thing was to stay together. After a tough loss versus Navy like that, some teams can kind of break up and go their separate ways and pointing fingers. But one thing that Coach Golish and the rest of the staff emphasized was to stay together. So going into the Charlotte week, the whole week, we just last game was last game, full reset, focus on Charlotte, and most importantly, stay together and love on one another. So that's kind of how we went into the game.
Terron, what's been the biggest adjustment for you, man? Bowling Green, you were one of the guys that before the season, somebody came up to me and said, watch this kid, watch 9, man. He runs like his hair's on fire. He's not afraid of contact. What's it been like, man, the transition playing here for USF here in Tampa for the Bulls?
I mean, ever since I stepped foot in Tampa, it's kind of been, ground mode focus. But the transition, I mean, the staff from the head man to the position coach to the GAs to the nutritionist to the athletic training room, like everyone just made the process of going from Bowling Green to Tampa, it just made it so smooth for me. As soon as I stepped foot on campus, like I love the environment. Everyone in the facility likes a hard worker that grinds, and we just kind of got a standard. Now, you feel me? I like that they had a standard coming to Tampa, so that kind of made me, up my standard a little bit. So, the transition was very smooth in my opinion.
And hey, you're from DeLand. You're a Florida kid, so I mean, right? That you get to come back home to the Sunshine State. That had to be nice too, right?
That's a plus. Family right down the road can come to any game they want to.
I love that. What has that been like, man? Being able to like kind of look in the stands and to see them here.
That's actually been lovely. Up in Ohio, they can't make every home game or really can't make that many games because all our away games probably up north too. Right. So, being able to come back home for my last year of college football and being able to play in front of my family and friends and, show them what they couldn't really see in person for the last 4 or 5 years. It's just amazing. It's honestly a blessing.
USF running back Terron Keith joining us. And Terron, tell us about what it's been like going from a guy like Byron Brown to a guy like Bryce Archie, and Bryce just battling out. I mean, the offense, you could tell it took a little while because with a big run heavy guy like Byron, and Bryce was a little bit more of a traditional pocket passer. I mean, what does it say about Bryce, like hanging tough in there, making plays, and kind of knowing like, hey, check the ball down, hand the ball off. Like you could really see him kind of growing throughout the weeks too.
Yeah, Bryce definitely has grown over the weeks. When Byron got hurt, our whole offense didn't hesitate to rally around Bryce. And, it was just like the next man up type of deal. Like this is what we have. Like this is what we're going with. Rally behind him. We believe in him. We trust him. And honestly, I like Bryce. So I was, hey, it's time. I told him it's time to go. It's time to go.
I love that. Yeah, guy's been waiting for his opportunity, and he finally gets his chance to do that. And now you guys are looking full steam ahead to Saturday. You know what's in front of you, and this is one of the great things about college football is, you got something to play for. Like you're eligible for a bowl game if you win this game on Saturday. Is that something that you guys talk about? Do you understand what lies in front of you, and how do you make sure that you kind of keep the process? Because I know Coach Golis loves that word. Focuses on the process, not get too far ahead of yourself, and just make sure you take care of what's at hand. That's the matchup on Saturday against Tulsa.
Yeah, well, ever since the Navy game, it's been rumors about bowl game this, bowl game that, but we kind of focus on one thing at a time. Focus on our process. Focus on the next play or the next game or whoever have up next. We don't really like to look too far ahead, get ahead of ourselves, so we can just take care of what we can take care of in the moment. Then the future will kind of take care of itself.
I love that. I also saw on your bio on USF that you are a bowler. Are you a bowler too? Did that say? Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, it was just so random. So I always do my homework. I look up everything. All of a sudden, like at the end, it's like loves to bowl and has a high score of 233. I was like, wait a second, is that right? Like 233, man, that is really good.
233. Yeah, I did that up in Ohio. I have my own bowling ball. I actually growing up, I didn't really bowl like that, to be honest. Mm-hmm. When I moved to Ohio, Bowling Green is not too far from, Michigan and Detroit. And even like Toledo, Ohio, like I had a roommate from Toledo. They kind of like to bowl up there, They kind of like we was going bowling up there, and it would just be random people like come and ask me like, hey, do you want to, put in something on this, put in something that on the bowl? I'm like, hey, I don't really know how to bowl, but I felt like that was kind of like their vibe. So
that's their thing,
I had to learn how to. If I wanted to hang out with these guys, I got to learn how to bowl. So I learned how to bowl. I got my own ball, and it just went from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a Midwest thing, man. It really is, especially in the winter. Like, what else are you gonna go to the bowl? Got to go to the bowling alley, man. I want to have some fun. If let's say you're driving middle of the night, your car breaks down. Who's the one teammate that you call, and he's gonna pick up? He's gonna be able to pick you up and help you out.
I can really honestly say anybody in the running back room. But if we had to go outside the running back room, I would say I have a blood cousin on the team, Ben Knox. Yeah, I know if I call him, he'll pick up anytime. So that's I gotta go. Yeah, but anybody, everyone on the team is my brothers. But running back room, I'm pretty sure everyone. I know all of them answer, and then for a fact, my cousin answer.
I'm a big food guy, so I'm going to ask you both these. So I usually ask one or the other. I'm going to ask you both. What is on a TK pizza and what is on a TK burger? We'll start with the pizza. So if you had a Terron Keith, a TK pizza, what would be on it?
I don't eat pork, so we're gonna
none of that.
All sausage, pepperoni. Yeah, none of that. I'm gonna say. I'm a plain type of guy. I might just go cheese and pineapple. So I don't know.
Okay.
So
you're a guy.
like pineapple on pizza.
You accept the pineapple. You accept the pineapple.
Pineapple on pizza, yes, for sure. Pineapple on pizza.
People freak out about that, TK. People freak out about them. I don't care. Like, I don't like it, but I don't care if other people like it. But there's people that bang the table like, no pineapple on pizza. They freak out, man.
Yeah, I would say barbecue chicken, pineapple pizza. That would be the TK pizza.
That sounds great. All right. What about a TK burger? What would you put on the burger?
Burger. I'm a plain type of burger guy as well. So just a beef patty, some cheese,
What kind of cheese?
lettuce, ketchup and mustard.
Yeah.
It depends on how I'm feeling today. If we're grilling, I might go on. I might go American. I will go provolone every now and then. Probably provolone though. Probably provolone.
Are you a guy that listens to music? Are you like, what do you got dialed up on the headphones? Are you a guy that's listening to something really intense? Like me, I'm a 90s baby. So I'm listening to old school Biggie. I'm listening to Jadakiss. Like that's what I'm listening to, right? To get me in my mind right. Other guys, they like it nice and soft, and they kind of find different ways to get themselves motivated. What's on the Terron Keith playlist to get you ready on game day?
Okay, so I like to start the morning off like a little calm, and a little cool. So I put on like some old school R&B. If not old school R&B, I go rock wave. Rock wave
Okay.
is kind of in the morning and like right before the game type deal. You can play rock wave whenever. That's kind of my favorite artist.
What's your R&B? What's your R&B
but when it
favorites?
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. The R&B. Who's your R&B favorite?
R&B favorite?
Yeah.
I got a lot. Mariah Carey, Mary J. Blige. Probably Mary J. Blige though.
Yeah.
Mary
J. All right. So now you're getting closer to game day. What's your one that's pumping you up?
Okay, we got NBA YoungBoy. We got Lil Dirt. NBA YoungBoy. I listen to Dirt. I got a variety of music. I don't know. I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of underground rappers too. So, it's
the way to do it.
It's a lot of variety of music. I got a whole playlist of all types of different artists.
I love that. All right, last thing I want to ask you before you go, if you could invite 3 people, dead or alive, to have a meal with you tonight, who would it be?
First, it will be God bless the dead, my brother that passed a few years ago.
Rest in peace.
He will be there. And also another one that's in the past. My cousin Trayvon Lacey. He was like one of the reasons I first started playing football. Like I looked up to him when I was a child. He passed like in 2011, but it'll be him too. And then I'm gonna go with one that's alive now. Who dinner? I'm trying to think of someone I haven't seen in a little minute.
Yeah.
Like an old friend, or
they could be a famous person too. You could bring Derrick Henry or somebody like Deebo Samuel, LeBron.
LeBron would be a good one. Actually, we're gonna go dead again. I'm gonna go Kobe. Just because I want to know the mentality. Like I would love to have a sit and talk with Kobe. Mamba mentality. Kobe. I'm gonna go Kobe.
Unbelievable. Before I let you go, who would you say has the best Mamba mentality on your team?
Excluding myself?
You can't say yourself on this one. I like that, though. I like that.
Mamba mentality is someone that just. Let me see. I'm not gonna go offense because
I like it. I like it.
Defense, Mamba mentality. We got some dogs that defense. Hawk's
the one for you. All right, buddy. Well, Terron, I appreciate your time, man. You absolutely crushed this interview. You've been crushing it this year for USF. I'll be out there on the sidelines on Saturday, so I'll see you out there and make sure I'll come say hello. But, man, punch a couple more in the end zone, right? You guys continue your winning ways and go get that, bowl game, man. But thank you so much. Continue success. Stay healthy, my brother. We'll talk to you again. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for inviting me.
You got it, buddy. The one and only Terron Keith, USF running back. Man, what a show today. So many different people joined us today on the program, including Chris Latvala, Pinellas County Commissioner. We had Zac Blobner join us, as well as Jake Asman and Terron Keith. So many good things that we got going on here on the Recher podcast. Again, follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. and continued love and appreciation for everybody that has followed me and for everybody who continues to support me. Head on over to the YouTube channel, man, youtube.com/@JRecher10. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your cousins, tell your mothers, your brothers, your sisters, your fathers, your aunts, your uncles, your dentist, your mailmen, everybody. Let them know the Jay Recher podcast is here to stay. I'm looking to go live later on this week. Don't know what day in particular. Got some lines in the water for some guests, but of course we're going to make sure that we always bring it in a big way. And the goal is to go daily after the new year, because I am going home to see my family for Thanksgiving next week and then also for Christmas. So don't want to start doing something on a daily basis when it's going to be pretty disjointed throughout the rest of 2024. I thank everybody, including my guy Bart Hill, for tuning in, for contributing to the program. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Monday. We'll see you next time right here on the Jay Recher podcast. Peace out.